Hello everyone, my name is Tara and welcome to Aligning to Love. In this channel I aim to spread hope, joy, peace, and love to the world by sharing goodness and love within my life. And in this video I wanted to talk about my personal and family life updates and events and the signs that I saw along the way. Today is July 11th and I want to backtrack to June 19th. June 19th was our last teacher contracted day of the year, and I already had talked about my last week of school in my school part of the days during the part 2 video of finally sharing about my last week of school that I had uploaded before this video. And so I'm just going to talk about an email that I read from our curriculum director, and she had sent it in the last weeks of school, and I just thought it was so beautiful, and I wanted to make sure I put it in this video because I wanted to remember it even when I'm older. And she had written this really heartfelt poem about our school community and all of the obstacles and challenges and hardships that we faced throughout this year. And it wasn't just about us as a whole, it was also sharing struggles and trials and tribulations that people had as individuals. And I thought the poem really highlighted just how significant each one of us were in the community, and how without even one of us, the whole community shifted, and we just were so vital to each other's success and resiliency this year. And I thought it was so amazing that she was vulnerable enough and strong enough to share this beautiful poem that she wrote to all of us. And I was so honored that she did that, and I was so appreciative that even though this year had been strenuous and there were a lot of unexpected events, we all as a community supported one another. And not just the teachers and the students, but our families, the student families really came together in the beginning of the year to support the educators and support their children for all of the changes that needed to happen. And it just shows how special this community was. And I just wanted to make sure that I remembered that poem, and it shows perseverance, it shows resiliency. But one thing I really love about our community is throughout all the stress and throughout all of the obstacles we faced, we still showed up to work, and not just making it through the day, but we found things to celebrate, whether it was on the staff side of things or whether it was celebrating growth and progress that students made. And I think that's the most important thing. I know there's the saying, fake it until you make it, but, and as important as that is for some scenarios, it's also really important to know and accept that you're going through hard things, and still being able to have gratitude for the little things that help you make it through the day. And not just make it, but make it as in you make it until the day's end, but also make it meaningful and make it profound. And there were lots of assemblies and lots of one-on-one and small group places where we did celebrate student achievement, and we did celebrate staff accomplishments. And it was just wonderful to be a part of. And I'm just really, really thankful I had this year to be part of this community before we make our move. And so after I left school on Thursday, my husband wanted to go out to dinner to celebrate that it was my last teacher contracted day of the year. And we went to a restaurant called Louie Louie's, and this restaurant holds a lot of meaning to me because both of my grandparents on both sides of my family, my mom's side and my dad's side, they all were from Massachusetts. And so as a child, we would do lots of trips to Massachusetts and stop at that restaurant either for lunch or for dinner. And it's had a really special place in my heart because of all those childhood memories. And it was the only restaurant and only place that I knew when I first moved over here 10 years ago. So it was my one place of comfort. And it also has a really significant meaning to me because attached to the same building, there used to be a jewelry store. And it might still be a jewelry store, but the one that I'm thinking of moved. And before it moved, that's where my husband bought my engagement ring for when we were going to get married. And I just think it is so cool and special to have one location that has all of my childhood memories, and a section of it also has the memories that I had as an adult, making massive milestone changes of finding a partner and knowing that I'm going to get married to them and starting the next phase of my life. And so I don't even think I don't even think my husband knew that going out to that restaurant to celebrate my ending day of being part of that school was yet another milestone that location would have for me. And on top of that, we also had another milestone of it was the first restaurant that we were going to be taking our daughter out for dinner without any support. We wouldn't have my parents or my brother. We wouldn't have any friends or colleagues coming with us to keep our daughter entertained and laughing and so that she wouldn't be bored. And so we were a little apprehensive of how it would go, but it was a great time and it took the stress off of having to make dinner. And my husband is the one who makes dinner all the time. He has the skills of making solid meals. I love baking and making cupcakes and brownies and sweet treats like that, but I don't have the skills of making delicious dinners. And so it took the stress off of him. It took the stress off of me that I wouldn't have to clean up from dinner because that's usually my routine. And so it was a really nice night to be out. And there was a couple next to us who were celebrating the husband's birthday. And they were a little bit older because they had kids in college and they were celebrating their son going off to college as well. And that couple just had such a positive energy and they were so happy and uplifting. We didn't really talk to them too much. They did talk about how beautiful our daughter was and how they were entertained by her because she loved waving to people. Our daughter had learned how to wave in the month of June, and once she started, she didn't stop. And our waitress was also very flexible. She made sure we had a high chair and she interacted with our daughter whenever she came around. And it was just what we needed. And even though we were all filled with emotions, whether they were happiness and joy or whether it was just apprehension for the move and just lingering stress that we knew wouldn't go away until we were finally settled. So just trying to take it in, trying to have a memorable night with our daughter who really enjoyed herself. She was in this white and yellow dress that had bumblebees on it, and we had just gotten her a white pair of sandals that she wore for that evening, and she just looked so cute. And I was just so happy to have a wave of stress come off my shoulders and that weight just to be washed away, knowing that I was pretty much done with my school year. I still had to go in on Friday, which I talked about in the previous video, and so I'm not going to go into detail about that, but it was just a really nice night to have. And we went home and we just had a nice evening together and got ready for the next day. And the next day, my friend from Connecticut would be coming up after I got out of school. And so I just wanted to move on about Friday. In the previous video, I had talked about how I had loaded my car up. It literally looked like a hoarded car of all teacher activities and games and posters and anything you can imagine that a teacher would have. And so when my friend came up, I realized I wouldn't even be able to have her in my car because there was no place in the back seat or the front passenger seat for her to sit. So I the whole weekend I had to use my husband's car to see her. But we didn't travel together too much. We would just meet at locations and spend time together. So it ended up working out really nicely. And that weekend, Friday felt like a long day, and I thought it was hysterical because Friday was the summer solstice, and so it was the longest day of the year with sunlight. And the summer solstice and the spiritual piece brings a shift in energy. And not only was I shifting in knowing that I was going to be done with my classroom responsibilities and my document responsibilities on that day, but I just felt a shift of stress and a shift of, I can't even put my finger on the word I'm trying to describe, but I guess it's a shift in the struggle, because all year it was a constant struggle to make sure I was organized, a constant struggle to make sure I had what I needed, my husband and my daughter had what they needed, my students had what they needed, and my staff members and colleagues had what they needed from me. I felt very depleted by the end of the week, and I was just so thankful that now I could focus on making sure that my husband and daughter and myself, that I could just focus on 3 people's needs instead of a whole community. Even though I'm very grateful to have that whole community, I did feel a weight come off my shoulders. And not only that, it was really challenging to try to figure out and make time to organize my family for the move during the school year, especially in May and June. And so now it felt like I'd be able to tackle what I needed to tackle, and I had the time to put into it. And so I was feeling that on the day of the summer solstice on Friday, the 20th as well. And so that was a long day, and it was fantastic to see my friend from college, who was also my bridesmaid, and we just really connected, and it was exactly what I needed, and it really kept me energized for the whole weekend. And it wasn't just a special weekend because my friend came up, but my brother was also going to be coming up because I was getting to see a play with my friend, who a colleague of mine from the district, who is another kindergarten teacher, was one of the main roles in the play that my friend from Connecticut came up to see with me. And I didn't get to say it in the last video, but I was so proud of my district colleague. She has been in lots of plays, but I really got to see her shine, and she was so radiant, and she was so entertaining and funny and like so hilarious up there on stage. And she had a beautiful singing voice, and I got to see so many different aspects of her with her acting that I hadn't gotten to see, and I was just so thrilled for her. And I was also just excited that one of my friends from my beginning of life friendships could see another friend that I've had in my current life friendship, and all of the other friends that she met when we got into the opera house for the play. And the curriculum director that had written that beautiful poem also had a cameo in the play as well. And so that was fun to see her part and just be surrounded by all the people that I really love and I care about. And so that was a fun night. And because my husband and I always have to split up going to plays or out to movies with my daughter, because we don't have anyone close by, family related, that can just stop over and take care of Juniper when we're out. So my brother also made time to come up and visit us, and he and my husband were going to go to that same play on Sunday night together. And so my friend left around Sunday afternoon after spending the morning with us and eating breakfast with us and having lots of goodies and treats and just yummy food together and spending quality time. And my brother came around 1, and him and my husband got to go out and have a guys' lunch together, and they went to a board game place where they have other people that play in tournaments, and it was just a fun time for them. I felt really bad because at this point I had wanted to make a video for the last week of school. I wanted to do it on Wednesday night after our staff party, and I had wanted to do it on Friday night before my friend from Connecticut came, and then I wanted to do it on Sunday after my friend left, but there was never enough time, and it just wasn't working out with my daughter going down for naps or waking up from naps, and trying to clean up the place a little bit in between the company. And so it just never happened, and I felt bad because I had asked my husband if I could use his phone to make the videos because he has better quality, and I wish I hadn't done that because when I asked to use his phone, that was also his place where he keeps his cards and ID and other things for a wallet that it's attached to his phone, and he had put his license and other cards in his pocket. And when he came back from the afternoon with my brother before they went to the play, he had told me that he lost his license because it fell out of his pocket because it didn't have a secure place to be in. And I felt so guilty, and I had tried to do a video with his phone when they were out and about and Juniper went down for a nap, and I was so flustered and I couldn't get the right words to express myself out, and it never ended up happening. So I asked for his phone and I never even got the video out, and he lost his license because of it, and I just felt guilty, and I will not do that again to him. And it was the worst time to have him lose his license because he'd be starting his job in the next week, and we had just hoped that we could reorder it and it would get here before his job started. But anyway, that didn't take away the fact that he and my brother had a really great night out together and got some quality time, because I'm really thankful that sometimes when you marry into a family, you don't always get along with your in-laws. And my brother and my husband had always had a great relationship, and they've also created a friendship along with it. And I'm so happy that my brother and my husband have that friendship, and they love spending time together, and it's not because of me. It doesn't have anything to do with me, which is really nice. And so my brother spent the night with us, and he had a business trip that he had to fly out in the morning going up to Burlington. And so it was actually really thoughtful of him to come all the way down to see that play, because he would have to drive all the way back up to Burlington to fly out. And he works at a store and a co-op, and so his business trip revolved all around that, with many people coming together in Minnesota who all work at co-ops. And I'm not sure exactly what they talk about, but it was definitely something that he had to make sure that he was well rested for, and that he could pay attention and gain knowledge and information to bring back to his place of work. And luckily, his best friend from childhood also lives out there, and so he got to, after all of his business and work-related things were done for the trip, he got to spend some quality time with his best friend and his best friend's wife. And so I was happy for him, because he has had a lot of work that he's had to do, and he's been working like crazy this last couple of months of the summer, and I'm just so proud of him, and he deserves a vacation. And he said that he was going to take a trip up to Maine to visit his cousins, and so it was much deserved that he'd be doing that soon. And so he left on Monday, and I just want to remind everyone, my car was hoarded out with all the teacher gear that I wasn't able to drop off at the donation center on Thursday. I didn't have enough time to do it on Friday before my friend came, and same with Saturday, and I believe they're closed on Sunday, so I couldn't do it then either. And we were having a massive heat wave that was coming in the whole weekend was hot, but it wasn't dangerous. And our apartment, we do not have an air conditioner, and we haven't had one for a long time, 2 to 3 years. And we kept having to buy air conditioners and then return them because they didn't fit in the window properly with what we have in the middle panel of our windows. And so we really have always had to make sure that we're on top of the weather so that we can plan ahead to be at my parents' house, because they have a heat pump, so they're able to stay nice and cool. And so especially for my daughter, when she was born last year, when it was the summer, we would make sure that she was cool and comfortable, and we would make trips over to my parents if it was going to be too hot. And we're doing the same thing this summer as well for everyone's safety. And it was going to be in the 90s to 100s. And so the first thing I had to do was make sure my car could get over to the donation center, unload everything. And it took me multiple trips to put everything from my trunk and the back of the car and the passenger seat to get it filled in all of the bins over at the donation center. And I felt like a massive weight was lifted off my shoulders once that was gone as well. It felt so nice to have space and room in my car again. And so I felt great when I knew all of those items were going to have another life, they were going to be useful for someone else, and that they were no longer my responsibility. And then I went back to my apartment, we got packed up, we loaded Juniper and all of our belongings and things that we would need for the time at my parents', and we got on our way to go see them. And not only were we going to go see them because we wanted to make sure everyone was in a safe and cool environment, but we got a notice in our building that the power company was going to be shutting off power because they had construction to do in our area on Tuesday, and Tuesday would have been the 24th, June 24th. And so long story short, because of the heat wave, they knew that it was detrimental to shut off the power for everyone because it would have been too risky for people's health. So even though they didn't do it, even if we hadn't planned on going to my parents, we still would have gone to my parents anyway, just because even with the heat wave, and even if we had the fans blowing and going nonstop, it still would have been dangerous for us to stay. And so that also reminded me, when I said the 24th, I also just wanted to backtrack. I know I'm skipping around. Back on the Sunday when my friend from Connecticut left and my brother came to see us, June 22nd was my daughter's 16th month date. And that number is so important to me because my parents, when they adopted me, I was 16 months when they got me from India. And it was just so significant for me to be able to give birth to my daughter and see how she changed and grew in this time span, because I had always wondered what my life was like in those 16 months before I got to my family's place in Vermont. And to be able to see the developmental stages and to see the milestones that my daughter went through from birth to now was such an honor. And it also made a lot of closure for me. And I'm not someone that had really been hung up too much on not knowing the answers to my adoption story, but I also didn't know my birthday. So that was mostly the biggest thing. I was always curious about my birthday because I loved learning about horoscopes and just constellations and things that you need to know regarding your birthday with different aspects like that. And so I just always was frustrated that I never knew my birthday. And to know my daughter's birthday and to know the exact time she was born and to see her 16th month of development was just so special. And my friend who was my bridesmaid in my wedding, and my brother who is my close family member and one of my best friends as well, they were both here to see my daughter turn her 16th month. And so that was really special. And so knowing that we were also heading to my parents on that Monday, the 23rd, right after her 16th month birthday, well, not birthday, but date, was going to be so meaningful for me and them as well. So it was just really special, all encompassing with everything that we were all going to experience. And so when we got to my parents, we got some quality time. They always are so excited to see Juniper and then me and my husband. And we just had a really relaxing night, and it was so refreshing to be in a cool and just an atmosphere and a temperature where I needed to have a second layer because I was chilly. And I wanted to do my video on the last week of school then, and I tried to that night, and I was just so in the middle of processing everything, and there had been so many people coming in to see us over the weekend. I just felt like I was a revolving door, and even though nobody was pushing on the door to come through it, if you've seen them when even nobody's in there, it takes a little bit for the door to stop moving, and that's what I felt like in that part of my life. And so I just couldn't say things elegantly. But on Tuesday, June 24th, I finally was able to figure out that I read Miss Rumphius by Barbara Cooney. And in the last video, one of the videos, I called her Barbara Clooney. So I want to make sure that everyone knows Miss Rumphius is by Barbara Cooney. And it was one of my favorite childhood books. And it summarized beautifully what I feel teaching has meant to me, because for me, teaching was making the world a more beautiful and better place. And even though I couldn't at the time describe my emotions and the events that had happened to process them, I knew that by reading that book, it was able to express what I wasn't able to put into words. And so I finally got that video out on June 24th at my parents' house. And it was very fitting and special to be at my parents' house reading a childhood book that meant so much to me. And so that was Tuesday. And then we spent Tuesday night with my parents, and we ended up coming back home on Wednesday evening. And Wednesday was a really nice night. Once we got unpacked, we finally got settled, and my husband and I were like, let's watch a movie, because our daughter went down to sleep earlier than she normally does. And we ended up watching the newest version of Snow White. And I know in a lot of places it's been getting not really good reviews or a lot of flack for some reason, but I don't know why. I absolutely loved it. And to me, I thought it was more like the Disney Snow White than any other version that has been made. And so I was happily surprised, and I really enjoyed all of the music and the songs, and I thought it was great. And so I don't know, maybe I'm very different from the norm, but I really enjoyed it. And I thought and usually when the movies do CGI or characters who aren't really in person, it can be a little challenging to watch, but I thought they did an amazing job. I was just really happy, and I can't wait for my daughter to be able to be old enough and to be able to appreciate that movie. And I also really loved how I know a lot of the Disney movies and a lot of the newer movies coming out are building women's independence and strength, and I think that's really important. But I also loved how they kind of changed the meaning of Snow White with the name aspect. The Snow White in that movie was not named Snow White because of her fair skin. She was named Snow White because of a snowstorm that she was born in. And I really love that aspect that they changed, because it made it more inclusive for a wider audience to be able to relate to that character. And I just really loved that. And yeah, I really enjoyed that night, that watching that movie. And then where are we at? So that was Wednesday the 25th. And then Thursday, let's see, on Thursday, I can't really remember what we did on Thursday. I have my calendar right next to me with a bunch of notes. And, oh, yeah, when we got back, we did a bunch of watching Disney movies just because we had access to some movies that we hadn't been watching much TV in the last 2 months, and I had been busy, and whenever I was free at night I had to do work. And so I was also really excited because one of the highlights, other than being with my daughter and my husband and getting some quality time with them, is that we got to watch Mufasa. I was blanking. I was thinking The Lion King, but it wasn't The Lion King. It was the prequel to The Lion King, and it was called Mufasa. And usually I'm not one to enjoy prequels or sequels, but I absolutely loved Mufasa, and I loved all the music choices that they made, and I loved the details and how they set up the story of The Lion King. And again, that was just really a great night to watch with my husband. We got quality time. My daughter went down to bed early again, and it was exactly what we needed. It had been so stressful, and to come back, to be in our home environment, and to watch some of these Disney movies that were new was really fun for us. And then Friday we did a lot of walks, and we did, Friday was a big day for me because early in the morning I got an email, and it said that my principal was going to be leaving our school, and he got a different position in another school district, not as principal, as a different role. And it was just really unexpected. And at this point in time, I still had a few things I had to do for our administrative assistant that I just needed to get done. And when I saw that email, I was really taken aback because I felt so bad for my school community to be losing our leader. And he had been at that school for 14 years, and he truly made it what it is today. And his heart and his personality and his vision for what he wanted all children to be able to access in their education, and to feel safe and grounded in a community that supports each child, was so important. And it really is what he wanted it to continue to be. And it was heart-wrenching to see that email, but at the same time, I was so happy for him, and I was excited for him to have a new adventure. And he had been so supportive of me with my change, and secretly, and not secretly, but selfishly, knowing that I was not going to be there the next year, and then knowing that he is not going to be there either, it selfishly, it does make it a little bit easier, because I would have, if I was there, if I had stayed and we didn't move, it would be under new direction with a new principal, and you don't know if it's going to be a good fit, and you don't know how things are going to change and shift. And I know it's going to be a lot on my school community and my colleagues, and but change is good. And we need to be flexible, but it did make knowing that he's not going to be there a little bit easier for me. And I just feel for all of the students and all the faculty and all of the staff and the families, because he had really good relationships and really good connections with making sure everyone felt included and everyone was heard and validated. And so he's an excellent principal, and wherever he goes, he's going to be so so special and important, and they're going to be really lucky to have him. And we're going to be really sorry to lose him. But that's life, and phases are good, and different seasons come and different seasons go, and part of being in a growth mindset is knowing that every change is going to bring something new for you. And so that's really good. But at the same time, all of that brought me was anxiety, because I still had to give my keys to the administrative assistant. And not only that, I had printed out the last document I needed to give to him. And now, knowing that he was going to be gone, I sent it to the printer, but it didn't actually print, because at our school, the printers that we have, you have to push in a code for it to actually print out. And when I left, because my friend was coming up to visit, I never went to the printer and pressed in my code. I had just sent it to the printer. And so I whipped into school at 8 o'clock on that Friday morning, and I dropped my keys off in the desk location where the administrative assistant wanted me to put them. And I also put in my code. I was really nervous that the printer wasn't going to have the code or I wasn't going to be able to access the printer, because I didn't know if they shut off my access to printing district documents anymore. And so luckily it worked, and I put my code in, I got the document, and I put it in his mailbox. And later that day, I had to go to the doctor's office with my family, and we had to get information, and we got paperwork. And then when we were leaving, my husband said, "Hey, look at the clock," and it said 11:11. And then as we were leaving that parking lot, it also said 222. And so 11:11 is the gates of manifestation opening. And that's what it means for me. Whenever I see that, I know that I need to be really focused on what I want to happen in my future, and that it's going to be able to be granted as long as I'm in a positive mindset. And then 222 is always for me about relationships. How am I strengthening my relationship with my family members, my friends, my colleagues, whoever I'm thinking of, or whoever I'm interacting with that day? I'm asking myself, am I being the friend or a partner or the mother or a daughter? Am I doing everything that I can to make sure my relationships are going to flourish? And so that was a good reminder at that point in the day. And then I know I'm close to 40 minutes. I'm going to try to finish up on Friday, because my next video that I pre-recorded did start on June 28th. And so today, well, the day that I'm talking about now in this video is June 27th. So I just have one more piece that I wanted to add. Later that day, around 3:15, we got home after that doctor's visit. We ate lunch, and we did some cleaning, household chores, and then my daughter had another snack around 3 o'clock. And at 3:30, well, actually it was 3:33, my daughter and I went to the Heartland Library, because my colleague, the librarian, she asked if she could videotape me and my daughter reading a story together for a course that she was taking. And so we did that. We met her at the Heartland Library. I also got to meet her mother, which I had heard so much about, and I knew that her mother was going to be visiting her this summer, and I was so excited to meet her. And both the librarian and her mother have these just peaceful and calm dispositions that I absolutely love, and they just make you feel like $1,000,000. And so we had a great time at the reading for the story for her recording, and then afterwards there was a farmer's market behind the library that we went to all together, and she had bought us strawberries for Juniper, and she also bought us a samosa that we ate at a picnic table, and she also got to introduce her mother to other friends that she saw at the farmer's market, and it was just a beautiful day. The sun was out, there was a nice breeze, and there was also a band playing, and it was just a relaxing atmosphere. And Juniper, my daughter, she was the only one dancing. She was in the field and she just was dancing her little heart out, and the two people that were playing the music and singing, they just thought she was so entertaining, and they even played a song and dedicated it to her. And so it was just a really fun day, and that day was the first time that I took my daughter out for an outing all by myself without my husband, because we've always double teamed whenever we've gone out and about. But we again were trying to get ready for our move, trying to organize and sort and pack, and so he was trying to do that. He was trying to get what he wanted to get organized, and so Juniper and I went out, and it was, I felt really proud of myself that I got her in the car seat. Everything went smoothly. She didn't fuss all the way there, and she actually fell asleep on the way home, so that was really nice. And it was just a beautiful way to end the week. And I was also really glad after we got the notification that our principal was leaving, that I got to spend the afternoon and the evening with a colleague and somebody from the school. And so that was really nice. And I know that I'm going to be keeping in touch with her and many people from the schools and our principal as well throughout the rest of our time. And so it was just a relaxing way to end the week, especially with all the stress and the chaos that had happened beforehand, and to get all the way to this point. So if anyone who is still watching and is still listening, thank you for taking the time to hear the events that have happened in my life, and hopefully you can get some entertainment or some peace or joy from some of the stories that I've told. And I hope all of you are having a wonderful day, and I love you all. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.